Chapter 1. The Unfortunate Encounter at the Opera. The velvet curtains of the Royal Opera House hung heavy with the scent of beeswax, expensive perfume, and the suffocating expectation of the London season. For Lady Evangeline Sterling, the opera was a theater of the absurd, a place to observe the frantic posturing of the peerage while safely ensconced in the shadows of her family's private box. Or, at least, that had been the plan. Seeking refuge from the suffocating heat of the main foyer during the intermission, Eva had slipped into the narrow, dimly lit corridor that skirted the grand staircase. She sought nothing more than a moment of silence, a brief respite from the relentless matchmaking attempts of her aunt and the vacuous chatter of debutantes. She moved with the practiced grace of a woman accustomed to navigating social minefields, her silk gown whispering against the floorboards. But the peace was illusory. Just beyond the heavy oak door leading to the side stage, voices rose low, urgent, and dangerously strained. The ledger, Alaric, a voice hissed. It was a man's voice, cold and sharp as a razor. If the discrepancy isn't accounted for by Monday, the board of the East India Company will have more than a suspicion. They will have a cause for an inquiry. Patience, Thorne, came the reply, smooth as polished marble and twice as unyielding. A voice Eva recognized instantly as the Duke of Pemberton. These things are a dance. You know as well as I that ledgers are merely fictions we tell the unimaginative. Eva froze. Curiosity was her cardinal sin, the trait that had earned her more scoldings than any lack of embroidery skills. She leaned in, not to eavesdrop, but to ascertain if the Duke was in distress. In doing so, the toe of her satin slipper caught on a loose piece of mahogany trim. She stumbled, her balance betraying her, and she pushed against the door, only to find it unlocked. She tumbled into the shadows of the alcove, colliding directly with a solid, unyielding chest. "Devil take it," a voice roared, a voice that was decidedly not the Duke's. Eva scrambled backward, her hands flying out to catch herself, only to find they were pressed firmly against the stiff, starch-fronted shirt of Lord Julian Beaumont. He had been standing directly behind the door, his hand on the latch, clearly having been the one pressing the Duke. "Lady Evangeline," Julian breathed, his eyes narrowing as he gripped her elbows to steady her. The intimacy of the contact was startling. She could smell the faint, bracing scent of cedarwood and cold night air on his coat. "Are you in the habit of haunting service corridors, or are you simply a practitioner of the most clumsy espionage I have ever witnessed?" Eva pulled herself upright, shaking off his grip as if it burned. Her pulse was thrumming in her throat, a mix of adrenaline and righteous indignation. She caught a glimpse of a shadow retreating further into the darkness of the stage wing's Pemberton. "Espionage, my lord? I assure you, my interest in your clandestine business is non-existent," she retorted, her voice low and biting. She smoothed the front of her gown, her chin tilted at a defiant angle. "I came looking for air. Instead, I find you lurking in the dark, conspiring with a Duke who has evidently mastered the art of creative accounting." "How very Thorne of you." Julian didn't back down. He loomed over her, his expression a mask of cynical amusement, though his eyes remained dark and piercing. "And how very sterling of you to arrive precisely when you are least invited. Does your lack of decorum extend to every aspect of your life, or are you merely making a concerted effort to ruin the evening for everyone you encounter?" "If I wanted to ruin your evening, my lord, I would simply stand close enough to let the world see your temperament," she shot back, her wit sharpening in the face of his arrogance. "You are quite right, I am clumsy. Perhaps I should go and inform the floor manager that the Marquis of Thorne is currently lecturing a Duke on the finer points of fraudulent ledger keeping. I am sure the gossip would be the highlight of the second act." Julian stepped closer, his shadow swallowing hers. The air between them crackled, charged with a sudden, unexpected friction. He didn't look like a man frightened of exposure. He looked like a man who had finally found an intellectual opponent worthy of his disdain. "You are a dangerous woman, Lady Evangeline," he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous, intimate register. You walk with the confidence of someone who has never been burned, yet you are playing with fire. If you mention one word of what you heard, or what you think you heard, to anyone, the consequences will not be social. They will be absolute. Is that a threat, my lord? It is a warning, he replied, his gaze flickering down to her lips before snapping back to her eyes. This society is a web, and you are currently dancing on the strands. I suggest you step away before you find yourself entangled in something that cannot be woven into a pleasant little story for the tongue. I have never cared much for pleasantries, Eva whispered, holding his gaze until it felt as though the very walls of the opera house were pressing in on them. And I have never been particularly good at following instructions. Especially not yours. She pushed past him, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. As she swept back into the corridor, she didn't look back, though she could feel his eyes tracking her movement, a silent, cynical hunter watching the prey that refused to run. She returned to her box, her hands trembling as she adjusted her fan. The music from the stage seemed distant, a mere buzzing in the background of her mind. Across the auditorium, in a private box draped in gold silk, she saw him. Julian was standing, watching the stage, but his head was turned slightly, his sharp, observant eyes fixed unerringly on her. He was trouble, she realized. The kind of trouble that didn't just ruin reputations, but dismantled them, piece by agonizing piece. And yet, as she watched him, she felt a strange, terrifying thrill. She had wanted a diversion from the boredom of the season. She had found something much more formidable, a man who saw exactly who she was and who hated her for it. Or perhaps feared her. The opera continued, the soprano's wailing of lost love and tragic betrayal, but for Eva, the real drama had already begun in the shadows. She sat, composed and elegant, while her mind replayed the sound of the Duke's voice and the heat of Julian's touch. She had stumbled into a scandal, and somehow she knew she wouldn't be walking away from it. The aria swelled, a soaring, gilded soprano note that seemed to vibrate against the very velvet of the opera house. Yet, within the private confines of the sterling box, the music felt like a distant, irrelevant hum. Eva kept her gaze fixed firmly on the stage, her profile a study in rigid, practiced indifference. She could feel the weight of a gaze from across the auditorium, a heavy, cynical pressure that prickled at the nape of her neck. Julian Beaumont was watching. He was likely dissecting her posture, her lack of applause, perhaps even the precise angle of her fan. Let him look, she thought, tightening her grip on the sandalwood slats. The man is a menace, and his sudden interest in my presence is as unwelcome as a thunderstorm in July. A low, resonant voice cut through the music, not loud enough for the neighbors to hear, but pitched perfectly to reach her ears as the performers took a momentary, dramatic pause. One might imagine, Lady Evangeline, that a woman of your supposed intellectual depth would find something more worthy of her scrutiny than the back of the set designer's canvas. Eva didn't turn. She merely tilted her head a fraction, the ghost of a smile playing on her lips. And one might imagine, Lord Julian, that a man whose reputation for aloofness is so well documented would find his own box a more comfortable cage than the one he is currently attempting to build around mine. A rustle of silk from the opposite box signaled that Julian had leaned forward. She could practically see the amusement in his dark eyes, the kind of cold, calculated mirth he wore like armor. Cage. Julian's voice dropped, rich and mocking. I was merely observing the phenomenon of a lady so desperate to avoid the Duke that she has taken to hiding behind her own fan. Does the proximity of his grace truly rattle you so, or is it merely the weight of the secrets you've stumbled upon? The provocation was sharp, a calculated jab meant to draw her out. Eva finally turned, meeting his stare across the chasm of the orchestra pit. Cage. The house was bathed in the warm, flickering glow of hundreds of candles, yet in that space between them, the air felt icy. My trepidation, should it exist, would be solely a response to the company I am forced to keep, she replied, her voice steady and pitched with a dangerous, honeyed sweetness. It is a rare talent, I suppose, to be both a marquis and a persistent nuisance. Do you receive lessons in intrusion, or does it come naturally with the title? A ripple of stifled laughter broke out from the neighboring box. The Dowager Countess of Weatherby had clearly been listening. Julian didn't blink. Instead, he inclined his head, a gesture that was half bow, half sneer. A talent, perhaps. Though I find it pales in comparison to your own aptitude for eavesdropping, Lady Evangeline. Tell me, does the truth often taste so bitter, or is it just the dust from the service corridor still clinging to your skirts? Eva felt the heat rise in her cheeks. Not from embarrassment, but from a sudden, fierce rush of adrenaline. He was goading her, pushing her to drop her guard, hoping she would snap back with something that would reveal exactly what she had heard. The audacity of him, to hold the ledger over her, to treat this like a game of cat and mouse when the stakes involved the very stability of the ton. The truth, she said, her voice dropping into a register so cool it drew the attention of everyone within earshot, is rarely bitter, Lord Julian. It is merely uncomfortable for those who have spent their lives crafting lies elaborate enough to believe them. She snapped her fan shut, a sharp, decisive sound that echoed like a pistol shot in the cavernous room. However, she continued, her eyes locking onto his, if you are so eager to discuss the contents of the Duke's ledger, perhaps you should refrain from shouting your suspicions across the stalls. Unless, of course, you're attempting to lose your fortune as efficiently as you are losing your decorum. The silence that followed was absolute. The music played on, the soprano reaching a frantic, climactic finish, but the air in the opera house had shifted. Heads were turning. Fans paused mid-flutter. Julian sat back, his mask of indifference slipping for a fraction of a second to reveal a flash of genuine, startled intrigue. He hadn't expected her to strike back with such precision. She hadn't denied the ledger. She had turned his own weapon back upon him, forcing him to acknowledge his own vulnerability. For a heartbeat, the animosity between them hung suspended. It was no longer the petty sniping of two socialites at a ball. It was a recognition. He saw the sharpness in her wit. She saw the depth of his desperation. They were two people standing on the edge of a precipice, staring into the abyss, and for the first time, they realized they were both holding the same lantern. Julian's gaze softened, just enough to be terrifying. He raised his wine glass in a silent, mocking toast, his eyes never leaving hers. Eva didn't look away. She held his gaze, her heart hammering against her ribs, her mind racing. He knew. He knew she held pieces of the puzzle, and he knew he couldn't simply silence her without creating a scene that would destroy them both. The aria ended. The theater erupted into applause. Eva remained perfectly still, her hands resting in her lap, her breathing controlled. The moment of public confrontation had passed, leaving in its wake a charged, electric tension that felt heavier than the silence that preceded it. She had held her own, but she knew the cost. She was no longer just an observer. She was a participant in Julian Beaumont's dangerous game, and as the house lights began to dim for the intermission, she felt the terrifying, exhilarating certainty that there was no turning back. She turned to her attendant, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Hetty, we shall remain in the box. I have no desire to mingle with the vultures tonight." "As you wish, my lady," Hetty murmured, leaning in close, her eyes wide with a mixture of concern and excitement. "Though, I suspect the Marquis isn't planning on going anywhere either." Eva glanced back across the aisle. Julian was staring at the floor, his brow furrowed in deep, intense thought. He was no longer looking for an audience. He was calculating. He was planning. And as the rest of the patrons began to rise and filter out toward the lobby, the empty seats around them seemed to shrink, drawing them into a private, pressurized world of their own making. The game had truly begun. The final note of the soprano's aria hung in the heavy, velvet-drenched air of the Royal Opera House, a fragile thread of sound that snapped into the applause of the ton. But for Eva, the sound was muffled, distant. Her attention was pinned, like a specimen in a display case, to the small, leather-bound notebook that had slipped from the Duke's cloak pocket during his abrupt departure from the service corridor, and which now lay, discarded and forgotten, near the heavy floor-length curtain of their private box. Julian was already moving. He flowed from his box with a predatory grace, his gaze fixed not on the departing audience, but on that sliver of dark leather resting near the velvet partition. "Hetty, stay," Eva whispered, her voice a sharp command that brooked no argument. Hetty blinked, her fan snapping shut with a decisive click. "I shall guard the refreshments, Eva. Do be careful, he looks as though he intends to hunt." Eva didn't wait to respond. She swept out of the box, her skirts rustling like dry leaves, and bypassed the thinning crowd with calculated indifference. She reached the shadow of the velvet partition just as Julian's boot came to rest beside the ledger. He didn't pick it up. He hovered over it, a sentinel guarding a pyre. "I see your curiosity is as boundless as your penchant for trouble, Lady Evangeline," Julian murmured, his eyes never leaving the book. He didn't look up, yet his voice cut through the rustle of silk and the murmurs of the departing gentry. "You realize that picking this up is an invitation to a hangman's knot. Or worse, a social exile that would make your current reputation seem positively saintly." Eva stepped into the shadow of the alcove, positioning herself so that the heavy velvet drape shielded them from the corridor. "And leaving it for the Duke's valet to retrieve is an invitation to whatever machinations he has planned for this season. I prefer the hangman to the puppet master." Julian finally shifted his gaze. His eyes were cold, dark, and searingly intelligent. "You speak with the bravado of someone who has never felt the weight of a ruinous scandal. You are playing with fire, and frankly, I have no desire to be scorched by your lack of discretion." "Then walk away," Eva challenged, stepping closer until the scent of his cologne sandalwood and something colder, like flint, filled her senses. "Leave it. Let us see if your integrity is as ironclad as your arrogance suggests." Julian's jaw tightened. With a sharp, practiced movement, he knelt. His gloved fingers brushed the spine of the ledger, but he didn't lift it. He looked up at her, the mask of the detached marquis slipping just enough to reveal a frantic, underlying intensity. "The Duke is not just a man of ambition, Evangeline. He is a predator of the highest order. This," he gestured to the book, "is not a collection of poems. It is a map of the Tun's most private failures." "Then we have a shared interest," she countered, her heart hammering against her ribs. She didn't retreat. She knelt beside him, the proximity sparking a sudden, sharp jolt of awareness that had nothing to do with the danger and everything to do with the man. "I have no desire to see my family's name dragged through the mud because the Duke has a ledger of private failures to trade for silence." Julian let out a short, cynical laugh. "So, the independent Lady Sterling is afraid of the mud? I am protective of the ground I walk on," she snapped. "And I am not blind. You aren't just here to watch the opera, are you? You were following him before I even entered that corridor." Julian stared at her for a long, agonizing moment. The noise of the opera house was fading as the stewards began to extinguish the wall sconces. In the dim light, the lines of his face seemed carved from granite, but his eyes were searching hers, weighing the risk of her presence against the necessity of her wit. "The Duke is bankrupting the nobility, one secret at a time," Julian said, his voice dropping to a low, gravelly hum. "He uses these debts to gain control over the most powerful estates in England. If he manages to finalize his hold on the Sterling estate, as he has been murmuring in private circles, your family will be little more than tenants on their own land." Eva felt the blood drain from her face. She thought of her father's stoic pride, his refusal to discuss the books, the way he spent hours in his study with the shutters drawn. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. "He's been grooming us. He has been harvesting you," Julian corrected. He finally picked up the ledger. It was small, nondescript, and yet in his hands, it looked like a weapon. "The question is, are you going to be an obstacle or are you going to be an ally? Because I assure you, I have little patience for amateurs, and even less for those who think a witty retort is a substitute for survival. Eva stood, brushing the dust from her gown, her resolve hardening into a diamond-sharp point. She looked at him, not as a cynical marquis or an adversary, but as the only person in this room who knew the extent of the rot. "I am neither an amateur nor a liability, Lord Thorne," she said, her voice steady and echoing with a quiet, dangerous promise. "I am the woman who knows exactly what the Duke believes to be his greatest strength. He thinks no one dares to look behind the velvet curtain. He thinks we are all too busy preening to notice the theft." She reached out, her fingers hovering near the ledger he still held. "If we are to do this, we do it my way. No more posturing across aisles. No more accidental collisions. We trade information, we verify the leads, and we do not stop until the Duke is standing in the middle of the ballroom with nothing left to hide behind." Julian stood slowly, towering over her. He studied her for a moment, an unreadable expression playing across his features. The cynicism remained, but beneath it, there was a flicker of genuine respect, a dangerous, intoxicating spark. "Your way involves a great deal of risk, Lady Evangeline," he remarked, a faint ghost of a smile touching his lips. "My way is the only way that doesn't end in our mutual destruction," she replied. He tucked the ledger into his inner coat pocket, his hand lingering near his chest for a second longer than necessary. "Very well. But know this. If you falter, if your nerve fails, I will not hesitate to cut you loose. This is a game of shadows, and there is no room for sentiment." "Don't worry, my lord," Eva said, turning toward the corridor where Hetty was waiting. "I have no sentiment for the Duke. And as for you, I find your company vastly more interesting when you aren't trying to patronize me." She began to walk away, but his voice stopped her. "Tomorrow," he said, his tone no longer a challenge, but a command. "The Botanical Gardens. Early. Before the rest of the world wakes up to their own misery." Eva didn't turn back, but a small, satisfied smile played on her lips. "I shall bring my own notes, Lord Thorne. I suggest you bring yours." She walked toward the exit, the weight of the secret now shared, the air between them thick with the tension of an uneasy, dangerous, and undeniable alliance. Behind her, she heard Julian's measured footsteps, a rhythmic echo of her own, following her out of the shadows and into the long, dark night of the London season. The mask of the Tun was firmly back in place, but behind it, the game had fundamentally changed. The masquerade had begun in earnest, and for the first time, Eva wasn't just watching the play, she was writing the script.